So on Facebook, we had a guy called Ben Holmes that asked us, hello, I'll be honeymooning in New Zealand in May, renting a campervan in Auckland and returning it in Christchurch 3 weeks later. I had a question that I hope you'll answer in one of your live videos. Here you go. Watching your biggest gap year videos, you often cover the activities, but don't focus on your day-to-day life. Can you give an overview of where you would eat, cook, and sleep? I was a bit surprised to see that even though you had a campervan, you still stayed in a hostel most nights. I know you don't still have the campervan, but I would love to get a tour of it and to know what are the aspects of having a campervan that really worked for you and the one that didn't. So what about campervan life in New Zealand? We spent quite a while in the campervan, that is true, and we don't have it anymore because it broke down on us and it was an absolute piece of crap. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't a rental, it was something that we bought, and we bought with the budget that we have, and we basically got scammed, and it was pretty terrible. Now, I'll go through your questions a little bit in steps about everything that you asked. There is a lot of things, but about the food. First, we cooked for ourselves almost every single night. We did eat out a few times, but we cooked for ourselves almost every single night because that's the best way to control your budget. It can get really expensive to eat out all the time, and that is actually one of the reasons why we decided to stay in hostel really often. But I'll cover that a bit later. But we do like to have a little bit of a better kitchen than the cramming little thing that you have in the campervan. Even as big as our campervan was, guys, check out our videos. Now, for morning, we usually have either toast or muesli, and we have heaps of fruit. We like to have a ton of fruit. It keeps us healthy. You know, like when you are on the road and you do that much so often, like you have to know that our days were, you know, very often between 18 to 20 hours days, right? And they were back to back to back to back to back. So we had very little sleep for doing all the filming that we need to do, all the transportation we need to do. You know, we still run the website as we were on the road and everything. So we did need to do a lot of stuff. So we needed to actually boost up our vitamin level a lot. So that's why we liked also to cook for ourselves, because when you eat out, it's often quite bad. Now for lunch, we had something called budget sandwich every single day. So it was a couple of slices of toast, and we put whatever filling we was on special that day at the Pack and Save. And same thing, we had heaps of fruit with that as well. So when I say heaps of fruit, we had almost every meal we had 2 fruit each, which is how we kept ourselves kind of filled and healthy. And for dinner, we actually cooked at the hostel, so we could have actually a nice, really big, full meal every single time. We're talking about like pasta dish. We did a lot of burritos as well. Laura does some really awesome burritos. And it's a good way to cram basically a lot of vegetables into a wrap. So that's one of the reasons why we like to stay in hostels. So Laura, do you want to explain why we decide to stay in hostel most of the time?
Well, for us personally, remember that Robin and I run a travel website, so we actually also want to experience lots of types of accommodation in New Zealand just for our research purposes only, which I know is not a reason that you guys are going to have as well. So like we try to really mix it up a lot, but that's not necessarily what people will want to do as much as what we did. But a reason you might want to stay in a hostel is so that you can use their facilities, such as the showers, the laundry, and just having a bit of a bigger kitchen with more like utensils and stuff to use. Maybe remember with your campervan that you often need to power up your campervan every 3 days. You also need to change the wastewater, and you also might need to change the gas cylinders if you're cooking on it regularly. So if there's times when that stuff runs out and you're like, oh crap, we need to go and like refill all that stuff, you can just stay in a hostel while you're like sorting yourself out, and then get back into your campervan the next day.
Another thing, we got really good Wi-Fi, like not really good, but we needed access to Wi-Fi, so we had more. Like one of the reasons, and Ben, I know it's not gonna apply to you, right? But one of the reasons also is that we need to power our cameras. Like running a business, we had so many computers, cameras, lights. I mean, you should see we had box and box. Actually, if you watch the videos of us arriving in Stewart Island, you see what is the minimum amount that we would take on a walk of stuff that we actually will carry with us, and there is still boxes and boxes. So it's because we have slightly bit different needs, and that's why we stayed in hostels so much. We would have been able to stay, I would say, about half the hostels, maybe even a third of the hostels we stayed in, and mostly in campsites. I still would have stayed in powered campsite almost every time, just because you kind of need a lot of power with that. And the other thing is just the shower and just kind of like the comfort, right? As I mentioned, between 18 to 20 hours a day, sometimes you do want to shower when you can actually comfortably stand in, and the shower pressure is a little bit better than just like, little drips, and your toilet is not a porta potty that you can barely stand on. So, I'm just being honest with you. Sometimes you just want a little bit more comfort, and that's why we decided to go for hostels.
And also remember, guys, that we were doing literally 365 days, which obviously if you're doing your holiday and stuff, you can definitely like do the whole campervan lifestyle full on if you are just doing it for a month or so. So you don't really seek those same sort of comforts as you would if you were doing the whole year, I guess.
Yeah, I think Laura and I actually did discuss around the end of the year. We actually only one or two nights that we actually did 7 to 6 hours sleep. Every single other night that was less than that. So just consider the low amount of sleep that we were getting all the time. You kind of you find your comfort very precious at this point, and since we've done that for an entire year, sometimes we did treat ourselves. So that's
the most convenient thing about having a camper van though is that you don't need to unpack everything and take everything into the hostel. Like, that was the inconvenient thing about staying in hostels, was the fact that we had to take all our bags and our boxes full of cameras and stuff in there. But when you have a camper van, everything has its place, and you just go to a holiday park, park up, and bam, everything's ready for you. So
that's one of the things that we learned when we got rid of the camper van and we got like the smaller, it's still a big car, but like the smaller car that we actually had around the end of the trip, was like the unpacking and repacking every time from the hostel was a bit of a nightmare. All right, cool. So what worked and what didn't work in a camper van? Because you were asking about that, right? So basically, like the pros and the cons, right? So we start with the cons of our camper van. So it's very personal to us, but so the showers and the toilets really not fun in the long run. It's just not fun to use all that. I feel like you at some point you do want some comfort. I think I would have lasted about like 3 weeks, and then after I'd be like, I want something a bit more comfortable at least once. I think Laura would have lasted a week and a half. Or maybe it's just good old thinking. Maybe I'm just too much of a Nancy Fancy. So our old camper van, it kept breaking down. We should it breaking down twice, but we had issues with it by like, once a month, which was a bit of a nightmare. It was really hard to drive. First because it's the big stuff, so that will apply to any camper van. But also the one that we had was a very old one, so it didn't have any power steering. So it made me work my muscles quite a lot. So work on those guns.
Finding a place to park as well when you have a bigger vehicles, or
in cities and stuff.
It's always a little bit trickier to park up at the supermarket even, and just fitting into a normal car parking space isn't exactly easy.
Lastly, we had a lot of leak in our camper vans. That was a bit of a nightmare for us, but again, it's not all the campers, but it does happen. Now the pros of what worked. That's the second part.
Well, in our camper van, we had such a big camper van, so there was a lot of space for us. Camper vans are usually designed pretty smartly, so they have a lot of storage, and you can just literally, you don't have to live basically out of your backpack, which when you are staying at hostels, you everything you own is in a backpack, and then it's really hard to find everything. But in a camper van, everything has its place, as I was saying before, and it's really easy to pick things out. And and it's also it's a good place, like a good backup for sleeping if you can't find hostel accommodation somewhere. Usually there's more of an abundance of camping accommodation or going to designated freedom camping spots. So there's more options in a camper van to find places to sleep rather than in hostels. And again, super convenient because you have everything that you need in that one vehicle, and you don't have to, keep on, when you go to a new hostel, you need to figure out where all the stuff is for cooking and things like that. And like I said, repacking and unpacking is not an issue in a camper van, and that's it.
Definitely. All right, so Ben, I hope this answered your question and inspired you a little bit. I know we didn't do much of a behind the scene videos, but it's just because we were doing so many videos about so many activities. And really the aim of that trip was to to showcase really what all those activities look like, to help you know where to spend your money, because one of the biggest expense when you travel around New Zealand are those activities. So I hope that in that sense, those videos were really helpful. Now, as per Campervan life in New Zealand, yeah, that's true. We didn't really cover that. And but yeah, we're here on the live videos to answer those questions and tell you how we actually felt about it. That would have been cool to do a tour of the Campervan. I think at some point we did talk about it, but yeah, we didn't end up doing it. So we're sorry. All right, Ben, you're welcome. This was the video you asked for. Give us a like, give us a sub, all of those kind of things. That's always super helpful.